Good morning and welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me at the market site in Times Square, New York City, we have Mark Emalfarb. He's the CEO of Dyadic International. We also have Matthew Jones, the Chief Commercial Officer at Dyadic as well. And we're going to take a look at getting ahead of the curve when it comes to pandemic and biological threats with synthetic biology. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us at Market Site. And before we get into the technology behind this, let's talk about vaccines and treatment and what the differences are there.
Matt, you want to field that one?
Well, thanks for asking us. I think the idea of prevention and cure is a massive market. So it's important for healthcare, it's important for patients, and for companies like ours who have technology that can bring to bear solutions to those massive problems.
All right, now this is what's called synthetic biology. Can you tell us the science and the technology behind that?
Yeah, so synthetic biology is kind of like Moore's Law was for tech. It's the way to genetically modify or engineer cell lines to produce different things, whether it be pathway engineering, to produce proteins or metabolites or individual genes. So it's a way of altering cells to bring beneficial properties to humankind.
All right, now coronavirus, clearly a hot topic globally. Can this kind of technology be applied for finding the cure for it or the treatment to prevent it? Because I feel when it comes to pandemic and biological threats, we tend to be very reactive and not proactive enough.
Yeah, so at Dyadic, we're actually proactive and been proactive for several years. We're working with the EU on a program called ZAPI, which is zoonotic diseases from animals to humans. So exactly what we're dealing with here with the coronavirus. But the difference to what we bring with our technology is the ability to mass produce those vaccines, which are the, to prevent, or the treatments, the antibodies. So we're really working on the technology from the standpoint of improving the manufacturing so we can lower the cost and bring it to the masses affordably versus discovering it. So we need somebody to find the right gene, and then we can mass produce it in our technology platform.
So it sounds like this technology already exists. It's not just for pandemic or biological threats, but for any disease.
Yeah, we've been using our technology for several years now. In fact, the history of our company goes back a long way, and we've been expressing genes of interest, which can code for proteins or for a range of different types of drugs, vaccines included. And so obviously publicly we've announced several collaborations with companies like Sanofi and others, which are really important for healthcare. They're doing two things. They're addressing unmet needs, so companies that are expressing genes of interest that code for those drugs in a meaningful way, so high protein productivity, which lowers the cost of goods, but also to address these pandemics, epidemics. We have a platform that's good to go, basically, and so we're working now with institutions around the world to have this conversation.
It sounds like it'll also bring down cost and make it a more efficient way to bring these drugs and vaccinations to the market.
Yeah, so in addition to being able to address these outbreaks, the tangential, the extra benefit of this is lowering the cost of healthcare to people globally. To exactly your point, we're able to make magnitude times more protein in a shorter amount of time than, for example, Chinese hamster ovary cells, which are the type of cells antibodies are made from. So, we can speed the development, lower the cost, and improve the performance. But the most important thing is getting medicines to people.
Would that need to be fast-tracked with the FDA? How would that work when it comes to the orphan drug laws and so forth?
Yeah, but the FDA have a number of, as do other regulatory authorities around the world. They have certain processes in place, of course, for expediting unmet needs, particularly enabling platforms like ours for epidemics, pandemics, as we're discussing now. But I think the FDA are part of this. We also need Big Pharma to engage more widely away from these more classical platforms, which they've been using for many, many years, and do have these ceilings of productivity and therefore are very expensive. And so we see it sort of hand in hand. We are, of course, a voice as a biotech. We do our job to promote the technology we've invested in, and we're doing great stuff, as we've announced publicly the collaborations just this last few quarters. But I think we do need the FDA to also have a voice on these sorts of topics, and we're seeing that come now. We're seeing a much more open debate around alternative expression hosts, and see one very firmly in that mix.
Well, in the U.S., healthcare is a big problem. For a developed nation, one of the leading countries in the world, we really do fall far behind when it comes to healthcare and accessibility for everyone. It sounds like with this kind of technology, it could make it more accessible because of the mass production, but also the cost wouldn't be as high if you didn't have this synthetic biology available. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, synthetic biology is kind of like what, the average person on the street have heard CRISPR, the CRISPR technologies, things like that. We don't actually need CRISPR because we've developed our own genetic tools because we've been working on this for 2.5 decades. So we have an efficient way of producing proteins, enzymes, antibodies, vaccines, virtually any type of biologic or metabolites by engineering these cells. These are hyper-productive, industrially proven fungal cells that we've developed over 2.5 decades, and almost $500 million have gone into it on the industrial side. And we're now leveraging the power of that productivity, speed, and cost reduction into the pharmaceutical area to do exactly what you said, is to make healthcare affordable globally to everybody.
Is there any pushback from pharma when it comes to this kind of technology?
Well, there's not pushback. I mean, certainly this is an industry in which Mark and I enjoy working with very much, and it's a very open debate we're having. Big pharma have invested lots of money in certain technologies and certain facilities and platforms, and so it takes a while to have these conversations. We're having them, and as I said, firms like Sanofi and others who are very open-minded to opportunities of alternative expression hosts, lowering the cost of goods, making healthcare more affordable to all patients. I think these are important big ticket items. They themselves, though, need the market and the regulators to be up to speed. So I think these things are happening behind the scenes, but certainly from Big Pharma's perspective and biotech's perspective, they need now an alternative expression host to be able to lower these costs right down. And so I think we're on that journey.
Let me just add a little color to that. I think that one of the advantages that we have is we're working now with 2 of the top 4 animal health companies, so that can bring their products to market quicker than they can for human health. So that'll help open up safety, toxicity, all the things that the FDA want to look at. That's one example. Obviously, if we can get involved with C1 to help make the coronavirus more affordably for the vaccine of the virus and also the antibody treatment, then of course that'll get to market quicker, and the adoption and use of this technology can spread, kind of like the virus itself, right? Spread all over the world so that it benefits humankind everywhere.
So what needs to happen with the coronavirus? What needs to be discovered in order to implement Dyadic's technology?
Well, one of the things that we are very focused on is having conversations about these sorts of vaccines for now and also in the future. I think it's very important to recognize that immediate outbreaks need immediate solutions. So we are readying our platform right now for these sorts of viruses. But obviously, once our platform is proven in this space, we are good to go, if you like, for other sorts of inevitable outbreaks we're going to see in our lifetimes. I think there's more of us living longer in smaller areas. Things spread very quickly. Obviously, history repeats itself here. So C1 is priming itself to both address the immediate concerns that we're talking about here, but in the future, we'll have a platform that's able to be drop the gene in that we want to express in high quantities very affordably, and that will be in the best place.
So, we're going to make it more rapid access. We're working on improving the speed to get it out quicker in terms of production, yields, cost, and then, of course, enablement. So that, a lot of times you take a gene, you put it into the cell doesn't like it, puts it out at very small amounts, treats it a few people. We want to be able to put out a lot, very large amounts, to treat as many people as possible more affordably. And we believe our technology, C1 technology, can do that more efficiently, more effectively, and at larger volumes at lower cost.
All right, Mark, Matthew, thank you so much for joining us at MarketSite. And thank you for joining me on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.